We're going to start on time. I want to appreciate everyone's time, taking time out of their day to join our webinar today. For those who don't or haven't had the pleasure of meeting in person, which may be a fair few of you, my name is Sam Daines and I'm the CEO here at Ardento. We've been a Zoho partner now since 2015, and we work with businesses all across Australia, New Zealand, and internationally, and help them make the most of the Zoho solution. We're self-confessed Zoholics over here at Ardento. And today's webinar, guys, is really largely focused on reporting and hopefully assisting you into understanding how you can maximize your reporting opportunities using the Zoho platform, and hopefully demystify some of those confusing areas, or at least put some information forward to you to allow you to start to think about creating some of your own reports and how would you best approach this problem. So just a couple of things, guys. It's just me on the webinar today, so no other Ardento team members are participating. So depending on whether you see that as a positive or a negative, I am the only person on camera and talking today. For the next sort of 45 minutes, I will walk you through this webinar, which will involve some slide presentation along with some live demonstration of Zoho software. Look, if you do have any questions as we go through, feel free to type them in the chat. I will sort of pause throughout the webinar today and try and answer some of those questions best I can. It is being recorded. If you can't stay for the whole session today, I will make sure that you receive a link to the recording after we finish today's webinar. And I will do my best to answer those questions. If I can't answer any questions on the fly, I'll make sure I follow up with those as well. So thank you, guys. Thanks, Glenn, for attending. Thanks, Sawana, and thanks, Shelley, for the people that have just arrived. So let's get started, guys. I'm sharing my slides here, so hopefully you can see that. I'm sure people in the chat will let me know if there's any technical issues that arise. So one of the major challenges that a lot of people come to us on when it comes to reporting in Zoho is just, where do you start? The reporting concept, or analytics in general, is a very broad and complex topic, and it does take some strategic approach to understand how best to deal with your reporting queries. And so really what I want to talk to you for the next sort of 10 minutes or so is just some of those ideas or concepts that you want to consider before you actually start creating reports. A lot of the challenge arises with reporting where we go into this exercise without really any plan around how we're trying to generate these reports, or what our reports are being used for, their audience. These problems need to be answered first, and then once you've got a clear answer to these, you can then begin your reporting journey. So where do I start is a common question. If you're new to Zoho or you're a veteran, you probably still have some of these questions, and hopefully I can give you some direction today. So one of the first things you need to do, guys, when you are thinking about reporting in Zoho, or reporting in general, is identifying the audience of your report. So this is super critical. Think about who is going to be the consumer of the report information that you are creating. So you might be creating a report that is just for you. And if it's just for you, there are certain things that the report may or may not need, because you are the audience of that report. For instance, you may not need to be as clear in terms of what the data is representing, because you are the consumer of that report, you're the audience of that report, and you will understand what the report is telling you. If this report is for somebody else, then things need to be considered in accordance with that. Do they understand the data that you are presenting to them? Is it confusing? Will they have questions? So thinking about who is the audience of your report is the critical first step into creating a report that's going to be useful for you, for the audience, and actually produce some output that is going to be valuable to your business or to your organization. So thinking about the audience and who is the audience is definitely one of the first steps that you'll want to take when you're building reporting in any solution, whether that be for a presentation, a board, an executive team, another colleague, a teammate, your accountant, and all of the above. All of these will have different impacts on how reporting is created. Once you've identified your audience, the next question that you'll want to answer is, where is the data that I want to report on located? So this is also a pretty critical question that you need to ask yourself. For instance, if you're talking of reporting on Zoho data, is it in the CRM? Is it in another Zoho application? Is it across multiple applications? Is it in a different database altogether? Is it in a spreadsheet? If you don't know where the data is, then you're going to find it very difficult to create a meaningful report on that information. And especially if someone in your team or your business tasks you with producing a report, you need to be clear on where that data is coming from, especially if the same information is held in multiple areas, because there may not be always accurate information in multiple areas. So you need to be clear about where the data is coming from. And then going back to that first question of audience, if they ask questions about the report, you'll need to be able to tell them where that information came from. So identifying where the data is for your report is an equally important question that you'll want to answer before you start building a report. This one may seem trivial, but it's often a very big mistake that gets made, which is understand what you are reporting on. If you are authoring a report that people are going to use to make decisions about, then you wield quite a lot of power, because you can manipulate that information in a certain way to present a certain argument or a certain piece of information that people are then going to use to make decisions on, or to rely on to take a certain direction. If you don't understand what you are reporting on, or you don't understand the underlying granular data that makes up that report, then it's very easy to make mistakes about how that data is then presented. Also, the way in which you present the information is going to be dependent on the type of data. So there is a lot of reasons why a pie chart like you see on the screens now is completely useless, because you can't really discern anything between the large segments and the really small segments. But this would clearly indicate that maybe a pie chart is not the way to present that type of data. So understanding your information, is it financial? Is it date-based? Is it numerical? Does it have calculations? Are we counting? Are we summing? All of these things and all of these questions are really important to understand before you start writing reports. So be clear and understand what you're actually reporting on before you embark on that report journey. And because this is all about Zoho, guys, we're talking about Zoho specifically today, you'll want to know your Zoho subscription. So, this may seem obvious as well, but there are many different flavors of the Zoho platform. Various subscriptions give you access to different tools and applications within the Zoho platform. For instance, if you've just got CRM and nothing else, then really your reporting is going to be confined to what's available inside of the CRM. If you have something like a CRM Plus account, then you're going to have access to Zoho Analytics, for instance, which is a more advanced and powerful reporting tool. If you've got Zoho One, you have access to all of these things. So you'll want to understand your Zoho subscription to know what applications you have access to where you're going to build these reports, or what tools you've got available to build reports. And one initial tip that I can give you before you go, right, I'm going to start diving into Zoho Analytics and creating myself a custom report, is check to see what standard reports the solution has available to you. There is a lot of reports built into the software already. So for instance, if you're using CRM and you're using Zoho Desk or something like that, all of these tools have reports already. You can save yourself a huge amount of time and energy by looking at the existing reports to see if they get close to something that you need before you go ahead and create a custom report. But of course, creating custom reports is really why we're here today, and that's what we're going to cover off. But thinking about what standard reports I can use first is going to save you time. John has asked a question in the chat, is Zoho One the best default app to use? So Zoho One, John, isn't really an app in itself. It's a platform of connected applications. It gets you access to all the different Zoho applications available under one subscription. So you'll want to think about, what app do I need to use? If I'm talking, do I need CRM or do I need some other Zoho application? But if you do have a Zoho One subscription, then you really have access to all of the reporting tools, and there's going to be no limit to what tools you access to build reports. And happy to talk to you more, John, about maybe what Zoho applications might be right for you. We can take that offline if you have any questions there. Thanks for the questions, though. Appreciate the input and engagement. So I want to talk now, guys, specifically about CRM. Largely, most people that encounter Zoho are going to use the CRM in some capacity, which is why I've started off with this today. We will move on to Zoho Analytics throughout today's webinar as well. So if you're really not using CRM to any great capacity, or you're not interested in it, bear with us. You will see some other content as well. But let's talk about the strengths of the reporting within Zoho. I love the Zoho platform and all of the applications. I think it's an amazing piece of software and it continues to improve. But I'm also pragmatic and realistic. They're not perfect tools. They have strengths and they have weaknesses. And I think it's important that you do understand what the strengths and the weaknesses are of these tools so that you can make the best educated decision about which tool to use for what purposes. So let's talk about the strengths of the reporting inside of Zoho CRM. It's really great for simple CRM reporting. 1 or 2 modules of data, for instance, if you've got some deals or opportunities and maybe your customer information in Zoho CRM, it's easy to get reporting out for these types of modules. We're not talking about complex data structures, just some simple modules to get some data out. It's really easy to view this information in CRM. So if you've got users in your CRM and you want them to be able to access the reports inside of the CRM, then starting with CRM reporting is the obvious choice, and you can have access to that there. Any report that you build in Zoho CRM has automatic drill down to the records. What I mean by drill down, it's just a reporting term that means if I click on something in the report, like a particular record that the report is returning, it will take me to that source record, whether it be a transactional record or a customer record. The drill down functionality is automatically enabled for any reports you create in Zoho CRM. So this is super useful if you're giving someone a report. Don't give it to them on a piece of paper. We're in 2024. Give them access to the software so they can access the report and click and drill down and explore the report data themselves. It's fast to create reports in CRM, and it is by far the less technical solution. Most people can start to create reports in CRM with little to no training. It's fairly intuitive, and it doesn't create too much complexity. So it's a great place to start. It's also live and real time. If I create a report in CRM, it is as of the data as of right now. There is no delay. There is no syncing of the data or waiting for it to update. The data you see in the CRM report will be live at the time the report is viewed. So that's a pretty powerful and important step. So that's the strengths. What's the weaknesses of reporting in Zoho CRM? You are kind of limited in the layout and the aesthetics of the way that Zoho CRM presents its reports. And you'll see that in a moment when we dive into the software and have a look at it. You don't have as many options to style the reports in Zoho CRM. So you'll want to consider that if you're looking for a beautiful kind of output. Maybe there are some limited options. You can't deal with custom calculations within a report in Zoho CRM. There are some pre-defined calculations and aggregations, which we'll see in a moment, but you can't create your own formulas. You can create formulas in custom modules and fields within the CRM, but you can't do it in the report. So keep that in mind if you've got a custom formula or a mathematical formula that you want to apply when you're building your reports. And it's not really suitable, guys, for complex data relationships, right? So if you've got lots of different modules that are all connected together, chances are you're going to struggle to kind of create that report. There are some options for joining data, and we'll go over that. But when it comes to really complex data sets, you're going to probably find that the Zoho CRM reporting falls a little short in that area. It's only for Zoho CRM data. If you're building reports in the CRM, the data must be in the CRM. It can't connect to any other application or some external source of data. It's only in the CRM. Alrighty, so that's enough of the slides for the moment. Let's jump into the software and we'll go through some of the reporting structures in Zoho CRM. So I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to share another window with you all, which is a demo version of Zoho CRM. Hopefully you can see that there. Scream out in the chat if you can't see it. Now, there are two main areas in Zoho CRM which really fall under the area of what I would refer to as analytics or reporting, and you need to know what they are and understand what they are. The first one is called reports. So this is this module here. If you don't see it, make sure you check underneath your More button. You'll have lots of options under here. If you don't see it under there, it could have been disabled. So reach out to us and we can show you how you can re-enable these modules that if they've been turned off. Reports, which we'll come to in a minute, is really what I would call transactional style reporting. So think of like lists and tables of data. That's really what reports are about. You can use it to create charts and visualizations as well. But then there's another area as well, which is called analytics. Now, analytics really ties into the dashboarding area of Zoho CRM. So this is where you can create components or widgets, charts that can be added to dashboards or viewed in the analytical area of Zoho CRM. So this is really more about data visualization and quick snapshots of data versus reports, which are that transactional listing of information. So let's start with reports, have a look at this, and then create a report from scratch. When you come to the reports page, Zoho does organize close to 200 reports out of the box across all of the different modules. There are lots. So you can kind of look at all of these reports. Maybe if you think that there is a report that you may want to look at, start by looking at these folders. If I want to look at maybe deal-related reports or accounts and contact-related reports, some of these are already built. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just check what reports are there and is there a report that may get us close to what we need. I'll show you how you can also copy these reports and create your own version. To create a report, though, there's a big blue button here. We click Create Report. And the first question that the system asks you is to tell it which module you're going to report on. Where is the data that you want to report on? So the primary module. So think about what is the main module of data that this report should have in it. We're going to choose accounts, which typically represents the businesses, customers, for example, inside of your CRM. Maybe called something different in your CRM if it's been renamed. Then we click Continue. This is something that has been improved and changed over time inside of Zoho CRM. They now present you with a visual representation of the relationships between the different modules. So this gives you a way to connect to related modules. So hopefully if you've used CRM for a while, you'll understand about the concept of a related list. For instance, we know that deals or opportunities belong to customers or accounts. They are what's called related modules. So we can see here that we've got one primary module, and I'm going to click on this blue plus, which indicates the child module, another related module that I would like to show information on. And then I can choose this drop down here. And Zoho is going to present for me the modules that are a child or are related to that accounts module. So I'm going to choose deals. It then presents you with another option, which you do need to understand what this means because it will affect the information that the report returns. Choose the relationship type, inclusive, which is likely the one you'll want to choose, which will show all accounts created with or without deals, which means if I want a list of all the accounts regardless of whether they've got any deals, I will want to include that option. If I choose the exclusive option and there is accounts that have no deals, those accounts will not display on the report. So this is what's considered a join type. Zoho tries to kind of simplify this concept for us with inclusive and exclusive. Choose carefully here, make sure you know why you're choosing it, and make sure you know what the result is and the consequence is of that selection. We can hit done. We can add further child modules, and we can carry on down this list and add further relationships as we need. For instance, if I had a sub form or products connected to my deal, I can kind of bring that further information in here. One tip that I can share, and I share this with everyone who creates reports, CRM, analytics, and anywhere. Don't add all of the modules and all of the fields that you think you need at the start. It's very confusing if you just dump multiple modules in your report from the word go. You can come back at any point and add additional modules in. And it's much easier to understand what the report is doing if you slowly layer on the extra modules. So don't be tempted to just throw in 5 or 6 modules at the start. Pick 1, 2, or 3 primary modules that you think you need for your report information. Start building in the report. And then when you realize you may have missed or you need some additional fields of data, go back and add that module in. You'll avoid errors, you'll avoid confusion. It's a much simpler process to build on the report. Once you've chosen your modules and the relationships, you can hit continue. Zoho just generates this in a preview format as a tabular style report. And it just grabs fields that it thinks are relevant for your report, which likely are not the fields that you care about. So for instance, here I can see I've got account name, account number, account owner, account site, account type, and deal name. These are represented here under this columns area. Start by removing the fields that you don't care about, that you don't need in your report. So for instance, I don't want account number. I don't really need the owner in this example, and my site is blank anyway. So I'm just going to delete the ones that I don't need, and you can see that starts to remove them straight away. I can then come across to this small plus button near columns, and I can add the additional columns that I may want to see in my report. So I can add industry, for instance. I can collapse this, and I don't want to clear them all. Let's start that again. We'll go back here to industry. I'm going to scroll down to deals. So you can see here deals now is the other module that we added to our report. I want to add in, let's add in like amount, right? We don't want to know how much these opportunities are. If I click done, now these extra columns have been added into my report. Notice how they're blue? Blue means they're drill downable. That means I can click on this and it will take me to the record. So if I wanted to click on Ardento, it will take me to the Ardento record. If I want to click on the deal name pen testing, it will take me to this specific deal called pen testing. There is the ability to add groups. So you may want to group together the types of records that you have to kind of create some sort of structure in your report. You may just not want a standard list. So you can add column groups and row groups, obviously being columns and rows. I'm going to add a row group based upon my account type and hit done. And so now what it's doing is it's started to group together those records by account type. I can see that they're grouped in this manner. And if I wanted to, for instance, I don't necessarily need to have the account type here if I'm grouping by the account type. So I'm going to remove that from my columns. Starting to just tidy up the report, make it look like it's something useful to me. I'm doing this in the preview mode. I haven't even saved my report yet, but you should save it, because if you close your browser at this point, you're going to lose it. So you're going to come up the top here and you're going to click save. When you click save, it just asks you to give your report a name. So I'm going to call this deals by account type. And I'm going to select the folder. Organization is key, guys. Don't just dump your reports in any old folder. Try to create some sort of structure to them. I'm going to add them in the deals reports folder here. I can give it a description, which might be useful if someone else is going to look at this report. deals listing by customer type. And I'm going to click save. I'm now looking at the view mode of this report. This now report is a live report that I can view and run. I've saved it. It's safe. It's in the system now. I'm not going to lose it. But I haven't finished. I want to edit my report again by clicking edit at the top here. And now I'm back in my edit mode and I can make the changes that I need. I want to create some sort of subtotal based upon my amount field here. And to do that, I'm going to use this aggregate columns option. I'm going to add a new aggregate column. Now, one of the weaknesses I highlighted of Zoho CRM reporting is that you can't create custom formulas. I can't say I want to add this or divide this or build a custom mathematical formula. I have to choose one of the predefined aggregate formulas. So it just generates a whole bunch of them. So I want to find sum of amount. I'm adding up the amount values and I'm going to click done. It automatically adds my aggregate into this particular form. And because I've got an account, I've got a subtotal or a grouping, it will generate for me subtotals as well as grand totals. Okay, so simply by adding in the row groups or the column groups and an aggregate field, it's going to do this across the report for me. Again, I can save my changes and then I can access this report. So a couple of things to think about here, guys. I can generate a chart. So for instance, if I wanted like a visual representation of this chart data as well, I first start by building the report as a columnized or a tabular format, which is the standard format. And I can simply click create chart here. Zoho will then kind of give us an option of like, well, what type of chart do you want? And I'm going to say, well, we're grouping by account type. That makes sense. But I'm going to say, let's measure the sum of the amount. So I want to see account type by amount. Hit save. And Zoho now generates a chart for me based upon that information. So very easy to generate a chart once you've got your tabular information in the way that you want. So I've got a few options there. I can edit the chart, change the options here, and I can choose to change the type of visualization. Okay. Keep in mind, guys, visualizations are important. You want to choose the right type of chart for the data that you're showing. Some people gravitate towards a specific chart type, but think about, does the chart easily highlight what the information is showing? So we want to kind of stick to a report chart that makes sense for us. So before we wrap up on the CRM reporting, guys, I want to point out a couple of quick things that you can do here. Once you've got a report, either the custom report that we just created, or even one of the existing ones that exist in the system, you can clone it. So for instance, if you find a standard report, or maybe you created another report, or someone else in your team created a report that you're like, hey, that report's pretty close to what I want, but it just is missing one or two pieces of information. Don't start from scratch. Just clone that report, rename it, and edit it to add the information in there. It's all about shortcuts and finding ways to get the data out that you want as quickly as possible. Cloning the report allows you to do that. Next on there, you've got the ability to export. Of course, everyone still loves Excel, despite our best efforts to try and remove that from people's day-to-day operations. But you can export the report to a PDF, to an Excel file, and distribute it in that way as well. And it's also worth noting that you can distribute your reports in Zoho CRM via email. So if you want this to go to someone's inbox, or you want this to go to another user or an external user once a day, once a month, you can send an email and build a schedule for later. So I can have this recur and send at a later time if I want to. We've got some options there for scheduling that report. Just gonna, what filtering options are there is a question that's come through on the Q&A. Great question. Let's answer that now, and then we'll finish up with our CRM reporting. That's from an anonymous attendee, so I don't know who that is, but thank you, Anonymous, for asking that question. Let's edit the report. Two areas of filtering. There are filtering available straight away as soon as you generate a report. This is what you see here. However, this only talks about date-based filtering. So it really kind of looks at the date data that you've got in your report and gives you the ability to kind of filter by date. So for instance, if I want to look at deals that were created in a specific period of time, before, after, between a couple of dates, etc., I can do that. Zoho adds this date-based filtering automatically to any report. But that's not probably really what you're after. So we want to edit our report, and we want to come across next to the columns area, we have filters. So filters here are predefined filters that are going to filter the data before you view the report. So they're not as interactive as the other filter that I just showed. They filter the report as it's displayed. And you can do that by adding a filter in here. And it's what's called an advanced filter. So any of the fields that we have available to add as columns in our report can be used as filters. So for instance, if I wanted to just say where the amount is greater than 50,000, a filter is now applied to my report to limit that information. Yeah, so Anne is also asking a question in here. Can you create columns that have formulas? So you just missed the first part, Anne. So the answer is you've got the ability to create what's called aggregate formulas here, which are predefined formulas. You can't create custom formulas live in the report, right? You can create formula fields in Zoho CRM when you do module customization, but you can't create a live or a custom formula when you are building the Zoho report. And that's one of the clear differentiators between using something like Zoho Analytics and Zoho CRM. Thank you for your questions, guys. I really appreciate that and the engagement that makes this exercise a little bit more enjoyable for me. I'm going to move on, guys, in the essence of time. I've spent kind of a bit of time looking at Zoho CRM. I'm going to really touch really quickly on the analytics portion CRM. Then we're going to jump into Zoho Analytics. Otherwise, we will run out of time. So I'm going to discard my changes here. Analytics. If you want a chart or a visualization on your dashboard inside of the CRM, or maybe you just want it in here, Analytics is the place to do it. You can add what's called a component. Again, Zoho CRM delivers a whole bunch of pre-canned visualizations, dashboards, etc. But you can come in here and create your own. You can choose one of these predefined components. So we're going to choose chart from an existing report, meaning do I want to pull in that chart that I just displayed on my deals by account type report? Or do I want to just create a new report, a new chart right now? Let's do that. Deals by account. This is not connected to a report. I'm doing this right now live on the widget. I'm going to select my accounts module. Actually, we're going to select accounts and deals. I'm going to do sum of amount here, sum of amount, pre-canned formulas. How do we want to group it? Let's group it by account type, since we've been on that concept. I could apply filtering here if I wanted to limit this, so it's not showing everything, just a few things, but at the moment, I'm just going to leave it to show everything, and I can hit save. And now it's created a chart down the bottom here. A couple of things. You go, well, that's great, but it's too small, Sam. I want this to be bigger. I want this to be a little bit more front and center. How do I do that? I come up to this option here, and I have to choose the reorder option. And when I choose reorder, I can do a couple of things. I can drag any of these widgets around in my dashboard. I can stretch and make them larger. so that they're a little bit more easier to read. And I can also remove, I can save this, and I can also remove by clicking in the corner of any existing widget, and I can remove these from the dashboard if I don't think it's relevant, and Zoho will reorganize it. So once you've created your beautiful charts, you can then position them and order them in a way that might be meaningful to you. Another tip as well, this is under the analytics view. If I want this chart on my home page when I log in, come here, click on the more buttons in the top right of that particular component, and just click add to home. And that will take this particular chart and dump it on my home screen so that I can access it as soon as I log into CRM. And of course, from here, I can go reorder, and I can move these around and configure this so that it's useful to me. Raul wants to talk about Zoho Analytics, which is exactly what we're going to do now. People asking about creating an inventory report for all different types of products. You definitely could do that inside of Zoho CRM, Jason, if you are syncing inventory with Zoho CRM. So if you're using Zoho CRM and you want those products in there, if you've got that sync turned on, your products module in CRM will be inventory items, and you can do that. So you could do that for you using that option. Otherwise, you're using Zoho Analytics. Anonymous has talked about embedding different applications. You can, when we talk about Zoho Analytics, you can't embed CRM reports in anywhere but CRM. I really appreciate all the involvement, guys. I'm going to move on. We're going to talk about the Zoho Analytics. If you miss something, don't worry. It's recorded. I'll share it with you. You can go back and look at that particular area. I'm going to stop sharing now, guys. I'm going to reshare my slide deck. Because now we're going to talk about one of my favorite Zoho applications of all time, Zoho Analytics. Zoho Analytics is a very powerful reporting and business intelligence tool. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes really diving into this. And I'm going to go quick. If we run a little bit over time, I do apologize. There's a little bit of content. I always strive to stay on time, but we'll go through this as quickly as I can so I know that people can see some of this analytics area. What is the strength and the reasons why you would use Zoho Analytics? It's advanced. There's really no limit to the types of reporting that you could create in Zoho Analytics. There is no report challenge that I've ever encountered that we can't answer with Zoho Analytics. It's not limited to CRM. You can report on any Zoho application using Zoho Analytics, as well as non-Zoho applications. And I'll show you that in a moment. It's advanced formatting, themes. You've got more control over the way the reports look and feel, more interactivity on the reports as well. Distribution options. You've got more. Anonymous asked about embedding reports in another application. You can do this using Zoho Analytics. You can embed the report, dashboard, other app, something like that. What about the weaknesses? What isn't great about Zoho Analytics? It's not perfect. It definitely has a steeper learning curve, guys. So if you go through what I show you today and you feel like that's a little bit too confusing, go slow with it, reach out for help. It has more technical capabilities, so therefore it is a little bit more technical and has a steeper learning curve. It's not real time. This is super important. Zoho Analytics does not have real-time reporting on Zoho applications or any other data source. It relates on a synchronization of the data source. So the best and fastest you can get it is every 3 hours with Zoho data. So for instance, if I wanted to bring in Zoho CRM data, it's going to refresh every 3 hours. So that's something to consider. They are working on a real-time sync for Zoho CRM, so you're aware, but it's not there yet. There are licensing considerations. This is a separate Zoho application. If it's not in the bundle that you are currently subscribed to, then there will be a cost to subscribing to Zoho Analytics. Okay, we're going to demo Zoho Analytics now, guys. I'm going to do my best to kind of highlight some of the cool features of the product without drilling too much into it, because we could cover a whole lot. And maybe if people are interested, we can run some advanced webinars in the future about the Zoho Analytics. So we're going to share that now. So when you access Zoho Analytics, guys, for the first time, you're probably going to be presented with something similar to what you see here. Doesn't look like much. Zoho talks about workspaces. Workspaces are collections of data sources and reports. You can have as many workspaces as you need, but you really want all the data in the same workspace. So if you're reporting across some different options here, you can import your data using this import data source option. There are hundreds of data sources that Zoho Analytics connects to, including non-Zoho related applications, on-premise databases, cloud databases, Excel files, including other applications such as Xero, Zoho Books, and of course, all of your Zoho apps. You choose the source of the data and then you create a data source. And when you do that, it will generate a workspace with that data source in it. I've already created one here for my Zoho CRM data. What does that do? It pulls in all of the tables and data structures out of that application into Zoho Analytics. So under the main menu here on the left, you'll see that it will break down all of the modules that are visible inside of Zoho Analytics. So these are the modules that are in my CRM that I've synchronized across. When you create a synchronization, you end up with this data source area on the left-hand side here. You have this. You want to check this periodically. You'll want to make sure that the data sync is successful. If anything causes it to fail or stop, then the data in analytics isn't going to be current. So we want to make sure that that's running. We can force a sync automatically. So sync right now, please. Get me the latest data. You get 5 of those per day, and you have to click that button to sync it. Otherwise, it's syncing on a schedule, which you define when you set up the data source synchronization. So if I edit this here now, I can see that this one is set to sync daily at 2:20 p.m. I can choose it to sync hourly or not sync at all. And I also can choose and unchoose fields and modules that have been synchronized. So if you're building a report and you're wondering how or where is that data, why don't I see it? You want to check inside of the data source to make sure that the modules and fields are selected. Once you have your data source running and you want to start reporting, the best thing you can do is to click the create button here and then choose how you would like to begin your report writing exercise. We've got the ability to choose a chart view, a pivot view, a summary view. I encourage you to experiment with these types of views to give you some sort of indication on how they present the data. Remember, you can't do any damage with this. You can report, play, experiment. You can't harm your data. It's read-only. I'm going to start by creating a chart view. Again, much like the CRM, it asks me, well, where do I want to start? So let's start with accounts. When you're in your report view here, we are presented with the modules and fields on the left and the report definition on the right. I'm going to drag in some of the fields that I think are relevant, and I can simply tick them. Zoho will add them into the area that I want. And I encourage you to, as you add fields to your report view, click to generate the report. It automatically will start generating a visualization based upon the data that it sees to give you some sort of idea about how this looks. We can then sort of come down here and go, okay, well, look, I want to also grab some information from my deals, and we're going to stick with the amount field. Zoho puts this into the measures area because it's a number field, so it thinks we want to sum this. So I can generate this, and we can start to see that bar chart take formation. Couple of things to point out here. Next to the little cells here related to the components of the fields that you're adding are the types of aggregation that is applying. You may not always want to sum something. You may want to count. You may want min-max, etc. So we've got a few different things here to go from there. Cindy's asked about, can you ask Zia to create a report? You can, and I'll show you that in a minute. So think about what you're seeing on the report, experimenting with this. You can also then start to kind of expand on this, right? So for instance, maybe I would want to look at account type, but let's have a look at the stage. So we're going to bring in the deal stage here, but I'm going to bring that in the color. And then this particular view starts to not look that interesting, but as I add in color into my report, I have the stacked bar option available. This is only a report chart that's available in analytics. You can't get this in CRM. Stacked bar meaning it's separating the data inside of the individual component on the report by color. And maybe I want to put the number amount on top so it shows that. How can I do that? And that's called the text aspect. So I want to drag in now my deal amount onto the text area. Again, hit generate. Now it's starting to add a monetary value on top of the report. We're starting to see our report take shape here. We're going to save this. Again, give it a name in an area. So we'll call it, deals by account type. And then this report, like all others, is available to view and reuse. When you're in edit mode, you can make changes to the report and you can view to bring you in view mode. What about filtering? What if I want to add some filters, but I want to take this one step further and I want to be able to filter this data, or I want to give the user of the report the ability to filter the data. So let's put in here a date. Let's put in deal closing date. Go on to the user filters. Filters and user filters. Filters means the report data gets filtered before you view the report, so you don't have the ability to change that filter. User filters mean give me the option to tweak and modify the filter when I'm viewing the report. I'm going to drag closing date on here as a user filter. When you add filters here, you have options further into play. You can edit these and choose, well, what type of filter am I talking about? Zoho is smart enough to know that this is a date field. So it's saying, well, do you just want a range of dates, which is a date range selection? Pretty common. But I can choose what's called a relative period. So maybe I want to do things like this quarter, last quarter, this year, last year. These types of things can come into play. Once you've added your filter, don't forget to save your report. And then I can view my report. My filter now is available on here, and I can start to filter my data based upon that information. And I can reset the filter, and this is available to whomever is viewing the report. So filters and user filters give you a couple of options there, guys. You can change the type of chart on the fly. So I can change this if I want to, and users can do this as necessary. Of course, when you create multiple reports, you want to bring them together on what's called a dashboard. And a dashboard is a collection of reports, and we can have all the different types of reports collated together on a dashboard. And I can also apply the same filtering that we have visible here to the various reports across the dashboard. So analytics gives you the ability to really drill down into this filtering in a great more level of depth than you do inside, say, just the CRM. I want to show you a couple more things. I can come up to here as well. In Zoho Analytics, you have the ability to allow your user, or going back, the audience of your report, to interact with the data in real time. One of the worst things you can do in the modern age of business and data analytics is create a report and export it as a file or a PDF and give it to somebody, because you've lost all the interactability within that report. You want to give them access to the live report so they can experiment with what they're seeing and gain new insights from it. I can click on one of these components in this pipeline chart here. I can see there are 5 records making up this top part of the funnel. But what if I wanted to look at this by further breakdown? I don't need to create a new report. I can click on it and choose drill down by. I choose drill down by, and then I can have a look at, well, let's have a look at that 5 records by account type. And now I'm in real time manipulating that data on that particular report widget to show me something in the context of what I want to see. And I can see here that it's still the deals pipeline by count, but I'm looking at the value proposition segment broken down by account type. I don't have to create a new report to do that. I create the report at the highest level and I use the drill down functionality to be able to give me that detail. And if I want to get back to my original version, I click that cross and it restores that amount. There are really kind of endless options here, guys, in terms of how you can generate reports and dashboards. And there's a lot probably beyond what I can go through here. And I know I can see that a lot of people are really keen to learn a little bit more about Zoho Analytics. So I think we'll do a follow-up webinar throughout this year on just Zoho Analytics if you are yearning for that more advanced data. A couple of other things, you can distribute this report. So there was questions about, can I embed this report? If I come under share or this dashboard or report, I've got my embed option. It can generate a code snippet that then I can embed on a web page, website, and it will load that report for us and it would be interactive. I can email this report on a schedule so someone else can get this daily, weekly, monthly. I can just share this in an email to another user of Zoho and say, hey, look at this cool report I created. You can access it on this link. So you can distribute the report in that respect. Themes, got access to a bunch of themes inside of Zoho Analytics, which give you the ability to, it's having a bit of trouble opening that, give you the ability to change the look and feel of these particular themes. So if I want to make it dark, for instance, which everyone loves a dark mode, I can do that as well. Lots to consider, lots to think about in terms of analytics, but it is really something that I can encourage you to experiment with. Take those primary principles around defining the audience, the data source, connect it to analytics, and start experimenting, creating reports. You can't break anything. Just dragging fields and data on there is the start of your reporting journey. Let's have a look at something pretty cool. AI is all the rage. Zia is Zoho's generative AI engine across the Zoho platform. It's actually getting pretty powerful inside of analytics. I can come to Ask Zia here, and I can actually ask it a question of my data and have it generate reports. So I might want to just say like deals by account type, enter. Zoho starts to think about, well, what types of information can I build in here? But if you've ever used something like ChatGPT or another generative AI tool, you can ask it a simple question and then expand. So I can say deals by account type. I'm like, okay, well, that's a start. It's going to be somewhere, but with amounts, because I want to see amounts in here, please, Zoho. And now I start to get something a little bit more meaningful. This is that exact same report that we created manually, and Zoho Zia generated it for us without creating any report at all. And I can come up here and save this report as a report ready to use. It's not going to be perfect in all examples, but it can be a really great example of how you can use the AI engine inside of analytics to start to ask questions of your data. It works really great on Zoho applications, especially CRM, etc. Obviously, if you connect this to another disparate data source, it may not have the learning to answer the complex questions, but it's available to anyone who's using analytics, and you can experiment with that. It actually also does have voice, so you can actually ask it a question using your voice if that was something that you wish to do as well. So this is just a bit of fun, guys. It's actually getting pretty powerful and it's actually starting to be useful. So this could be a great way to kind of start at generating some of your own reports. So that was something that Cindy asked. It's the Ask Zia function there. We've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to cast my eyes to the questions and see if I can knock any more. And then I've got a little bit of bonus content to wrap up the last 5 minutes. So hopefully, what have we got here? Either a community service, our modules are renamed to suit our purposes. If we use Zia, do we need to ask them using the original system? So Anna's asking a question about, does Zia recognize the renamed modules? Yes, it will. So when you rename your modules in CRM, for instance, and you sync it with analytics, the actual renamed module name makes its way into analytics. So if you call accounts customers, it will understand that. Another one from Anna here. Can it automatically generate dashboards, predefined email, and send to a predefined email list periodically? I don't know if Zia can automatically create an email schedule, if that's what you're asking, Anna, but you can definitely set up a schedule and send it periodically, a dashboard periodically through there. Zia can generate a dashboard for you if you ask it to. Whether all of the components on there are going to be relevant, probably not. You can sort of pick and choose what you want, but definitely have some options to experiment there. Can we join different modules in analytics? A really great question from Anna there. The answer is absolutely yes. Zoho does a great job of pre-joining your own modules inside of Zoho Analytics. So it already knows the architecture of your CRM database. However, if you do have other data sources in play and the joining is not relevant, you may need to use what's called a query. And this is getting into technical territory, probably a little bit beyond this webinar today, but it's something that we can definitely provide help and assistance on. It's around creating what's called an SQL statement, which allows you to join data together. You can do that. There is no kind of limit to that. And I think I've kind of answered most of those. Cast my mind to the chat. How we change the sync time? How often? Okay, answered, Luke. Yes, you can change that synchronization inside of there. You've got up to 3 hours is the most common one. So we've got a few options there. Luke was asking about how do we change how often the data synchronizes to analytics? And you've got some options there, remembering it's in the data source area. There's a lot of content, guys. You've been so patient up until this point, and I really appreciate all the engagement. It's been excellent. We've got a few minutes left. I am going to finish on time because I do respect that everyone's got their day to get back to. I want to show you something that you may not be aware of, a fairly new tool inside of Zoho CRM, which is called DataPrep. If you have a Zoho One subscription, you have access to a tool called Zoho DataPrep. This is not a reporting tool. This is a data cleansing and transformation tool. No data is perfect, and it likely is that your data may be messy. You can import different data sources into DataPrep and use this tool to help manipulate the data before you report on it. So for instance, I've got my accounts record here. And I might have, various fields of data across here that may make sense or may not make sense. And I'm going to kind of go across to find something that might have a little bit of data in it that might look relevant to me. So for instance, if we use, this has got some billing cities in here. A great example might be things like you've got South Australia and SA, and there's some differentiation between the two. What I can do is I can look at this data and I can actually manipulate this data. It's not going to affect my source, and it's only going to go through to the reporting tool. So think of this as a piece of middle data manipulation that allows you to edit the data, configure the data, and build it out before it gets to a specific reporting source like analytics. So for instance, I'm going to replace, like maybe we would want here, we're going to replace Ashland with Chicago. And so what you can see here is this is the data that is in my data source, Ashland and Chicago. And this is what the new output is going to be. A great example in like real world terms might be people enter in South Australia, the full word, or SA, or they enter Vic and Victoria. No worries, Fiona. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate you being a part of it. Thanks for tuning in. You can configure and use this data manipulation tool to pre-cleanse your data before you report on. This is a really new tool, guys, and it's really kind of expanding on. I'm only just touching on the surface here, guys. If you have complex data that needs cleansing and you're thinking about doing all of this work in Excel, exporting it out and manipulating it, consider Zoho DataPrep. It might be a way to do some cleansing of your data in a more smarter programmatic way, rather than having to kind of import, export data before you start building your reports, especially if you've got larger data sets that may not be as clean as you would like them to be. Again, we might touch on this a little later. I am going to stop sharing, guys, and I'm going to just share my slide deck really briefly at the end here. I do appreciate your time. We are slightly over time at 12:01 here in Adelaide. Thanks very much for tuning in. I really hope I was able to show you something of value today. There will be a recording. I will share this around. I love to hear your feedback. If you want something more, if you like these webinars, you'd want some more content, you want us to do something on advanced, we're getting more and more attendees every time we run these. We're going to be running at least 6 throughout the year. Thanks again for your time, everybody. Please follow our socials. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got more content there. All the best and have a great day.